Need to calm down. No, okay, got it. All right, so today we're going to talk about the review of literature. So your review of literature is a standalone paper. So if we are reviewing the literature, who remembers from when you actually had to do this assignment before, when I was teaching at that time, what was my requirement for your review of literature?
At least 3 things.
3 things. 3 to 5 studies, right? 3 to 5 articles.
A paragraph each.
Paragraph-ish?
It's 5 sentences.
Correct. You got this down. Okay, so now I'm gonna have you pretty much erase that from your brain.
Oh.
But that is still fine. You can still have a 5-sentence paragraph, that's okay. Or you could have 2 paragraphs that have 3 sentences in them, that's fine. I am looking to 5 to 6 sentences essentially for each one of these studies. The thing is when you guys turned in your review of literatures, a lot of what I saw is it said review of literature, and then you gave me the title. I'm going to give you your review of literatures back, by the way, with comments when we're done with this lesson. A lot of you put like the title of the article and then told me about the article. Then you put the title of the next article and then told me about that article. Is that how you write a paper?
No.
No. What is a paper supposed to have?
Continuous in paragraph.
It's supposed to continue, which yours was the best one I read out of all the classes, just to tell you that now. Don't get a big head with that. Okay, speaking of heads, what would be, if you were looking at a specific paper, like if you were looking at a research paper, what would you consider the paper, the head of the paper to be? The top of the paper, what is it?
Introduction.
An introduction, right? So the review of literature has to have an introduction. What else does it have to have? So you have the head, and then you have the body. Thank you. And what are the feet?
Conclusion.
The conclusion. So you have to have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. Do not turn in a paper that doesn't have a head and doesn't have feet. Okay? Because if you turn in a paper without a head, is it going to be any good? No. If you turn in a paper without feet, could your body still function?
Yep.
Yes. You could still function without a conclusion. You're just not going to get anywhere. Right?
Stuffy.
Okay, so when you're writing your review of literature, you need to make sure that you have an introduction. And that introduction is not necessarily the same as introducing, a lot of you started with, the first study I read was about. That's not an introduction. It's an introduction to the study, but it's not an introduction to what your actual paper is about. We are going to pretend that our science fair project was about testing the weight of fishing line. Okay? That's what our topic was going to be. And Mrs. Williamson's paper is about that, so Mrs. Williamson is going to do a bunch of research, and she's going to find 3 to 5 articles or studies that are similar. Do you remember what they needed to be similar in? Do they have to be like identical? Do they have to test the same thing? The concept needed to be the same. So what else could you have the same? Nobody remembers? So similar to your topic is one option. They can use a similar research or experiment, or they're providing background information. Does everyone understand that? So that's what you're looking for. So in my review of literature that I'm going to write about testing fish line, my introduction is going to say, there are many different types of fish line. Each line is rated to a specific weight by the manufacturer. Scientists have done numerous studies on fish line weight. Simple as that. So Derek had a really good introduction on his paper. his experiment is about digestibility of corn, right? And particle size, right? And he started with when feeding cattle, corn is an important feedstuff. The many different things affect the digestibility of corn in a cattle ration. That is a good introduction for the actual review of literature, because then his articles were about particle size and how that impacts things, and that was very good. He could actually, in there, what would make it even better is if you put a quote of what percentage of cattle diets across the nation have corn in them, because then it just makes it one step better. So, simple. Logan, what's your project about?
Rate of gain.
Rate of gain in swine and spoils the most, okay? So rate of gain in swine, swine producers are always looking at ways to improve their bottom line, and one of the ways that they do that is through their rate of gain. Scientists have done numerous studies to see how different things impact the rate of gain in pigs. Logan Hiller's, his project on spoiling milk would be there are many things that cause milk to spoil. Food scientists have done numerous studies about the spoilage of milk. Now, I say the word scientist and kids think, oh, it has to be a big deal scientist, right? It has to be Einstein or Dr. Spock or whatever. You are all scientists because you are asking a question and you are solving them. I'm going to keep calling you Dr. Krieger, okay? All right, so you're all scientists, so you can say that word, even though some of you are going to be citing studies that were done by other high school kids or college graduates that maybe are not deemed named scientists. When you are trying to solve a problem, you are being a scientist. Yes?
So Logan could use my old project.
He could. Logan could totally cite your project. He could totally, because your project has been published. That would be the only thing, is that, like, how has your project been published? He might have problems when he cites it in the citation, but I can help you with that. Okay? So that's my introduction. That's pretty easy, right? Yes? Okay. So on my ClassJump webpage, I think I shared this with you guys. I spent a lot of time on going through and putting some hints and tricks and putting together this document, which you guys are all going to get at some point in time, about the science fair, because if you're going to do it, you're going to do it right? There's no reason to do it halfway. And so what we're going to do, I'll give you new updated due dates in a little bit later, because those aren't necessarily correct. We're on the ClassJump webpage. The first thing I did is I moved science fair to the top, so you don't have to scroll down for it. It's going to be right at the top. But it has all kinds of different templates and instructions. And one of the things that I want to point out is there is a tutorial on how to do citations in APA, which is what you have to do on here, that you can watch in your own leisure time. Okay, but what we're going to talk about today specifically is the abstract, or not the abstract, I'm sorry, the literature review. I want you to ignore the word abstract up here because that's completely pointless. This is a literature review. What? Can I teach your class?
I'm not doing it.
You guys are awesome today. I should videotape more often because then you behave yourselves. Okay, so the abstract, when you are looking at your
Might want to delete that out.
okay,
And
I
it's,
missed it.
it's recorded.
Okay.
Are you on crack today or something?
No, I'm not. When you are working on your review of literature, I asked you to pull out some information in that video. What did I ask you to tell me about your studies? Does anyone remember that?
No.
What did you have to tell me about each thing?
Oh, what their conclusion was.
What their conclusion was,
How they set it up.
how they set it up, and
Uh,
just kind of about it, right?
yeah.
That's kind of wishy-washy, right? It's not very concrete what I'm asking you for. This is concrete. I'm going to ask you for each one of your articles that you find that you're going to analyze that material. And you're going to analyze that and you're going to extrapolate. So you're going to pull out, you're going to abstract from it 4 things. That's why that word abstract is there. The first thing you're going to abstract or analyze from it is the purpose and the objective. So you're going to read through the whole article and you're going to be like, what was the purpose and objective of this article? So my fictitious science fair project about the weight of fishing line, I read through it and I'm like, oh, that's the purpose. Oh, that's the objective. So now I'm going to write that. But I'm going to write that in one sentence and only one sentence only. The Rain Man Experiment looked at 3 fishing lines
Show him.
Rayman is a retarded.
The Rayman experiment looked at 3 fishing lines to test the weight at which the line broke. Right? So, first of all, this is my purpose and objective. So in this sentence, and I want you guys to underline this in your notebook because you're not going to write in pretty colors like I did. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to underline experiment looked at 3 fishing lines. That is the purpose. So I want you to underline that and write above that the word purpose. So that is the purpose. What's the objective? To test the weight at which the line broke. So you're going to underline that and then write the word objective. Simple, right? The other thing I want you to notice, which is one thing that none of you picture. Here we go. So the Rain Man, you're used to citing it that way where you just put Rain Man Comics 2003. You can do it this way, but you can also do it this way, which to me, Derek, when you do it this way, it actually makes more sense than just tagging in at the end. You can do it, and if you watch the APA video on here that's like 3, there's one that's 3 minutes long, there's one that's like 5 minutes long. It talks a lot about different ways that you can cite so that your paper reads better. And this citation will have it read better. Okay, so I did my purpose and objective. According to Mrs. Williamson's instruction, the next thing I'm going to do is write about the methods of the project. So the Rain Man experiment looked at 3 fishing lines to test the weight at which the line broke. Rain Man used weights in 2-pound increments. He attached them to the line until it broke. Rain Man repeated the test 3 times for each line. Is this a step-by-step methods? First you did this, second you did this, third you did this? No, but it's a summary of the methods portion of it. It tells you what he used. It tells you that he used weights and fish lines and recorded his data, but it doesn't go into like complete detail. So this portion right here, if you underline it or circle it or whatever you want to do, and then I want you to write the word method by it. So it summarizes that method, right? This is probably a paragraph. I'm obviously writing really fast and not really getting into a lot of detail. You don't have to get into a lot of detail, but you do need to get into a little bit more detail than what's here. So I'm done now, right? I talked about the purposes and objectives. I talked about the methods.
Now you need results.
You're right, I need results. So the next thing I'm going to do is results. And to me, results and conclusion tie in really nice together, which is why I like to do the purpose and objective and the methods in one paragraph, and then do the results and conclusion in the second one. So in this study, of 25-pound test or fishing lines, line A averaged 26 pounds before it broke. Line B averaged 19 pounds, and line C averaged 32 pounds before breaking. Are those all the results of the project? Line C, right?
Yes.
Are they all the results?
Yes.
Okay, do you think Rayman probably had this big data chart?
Yes.
Yeah, but did I put all of that data in there?
No.
No, I summarized the data into one statement, right? Hey, at least he's participating today. So I summarized all the data into one statement. And Rayman might not have averaged his data, but you guys can go ahead and do that so that you just have one statement about that. Now that statement is in a couple of sentences. So if you underline that in your notebook, and then you're going to write the word what by it, Oscar. What word are you going to write there?
Result.
Results. Thank you, sir.
People that you actually going to say write the word apply that. I was like, what?
You're like, okay, she's finally lost it.
So,
So then we have the conclusions. So he is just going to write down the Rayman study found, because found is another word for conclude. You don't have to use the word conclusion all the time. The Rayman study found that line A and line C met the manufacturer's weight. Okay, one statement, one conclusion, done. So now I'm done, right? Because now I can underline this and I can write the word
Done.
conclusion. Done?
That
I
is
do this
correct.
3 times and I turn in my paper to Mrs. Williamson and I ace my review of literature, right?
no, you need your conclusion.
You need your conclusion of the whole thing. You need your feet. Okay? I find that in writing the review of literature, the hardest part of it is writing that foot. It's writing that conclusion at the end. The introduction I think is pretty easy, but when you start to get to the conclusion part, that's when I get on the struggle bus. Because it's hard to conclude it without talking about your project. And remember, in the review of literature, you don't actually ever talk about your specific project. So, if we're going to write a conclusion, I hope you all have that written down. If we're going to write a conclusion for our project, I would put something like, or scientists have found numerous methods to test the weight rates of fishing line, including attaching weights, stretching the line, and actual fishing. Period. They have found that that every line does not always meet manufacturer's specifications for a variety of reasons. The best advice that I have for you in writing your conclusion is to summarize the methods. So look at your 3 different projects you had, summarize those methods into 1 or 2 sentences, and I just did that. So say my first article was Rainmans, where they attached a weight. My second article was Snowmans, where they stretched the line. And my third article was Sunman, who fished with it. So do you understand how that summarizes that? And then the last 1 to 2 sentences of your conclusion should summarize the conclusions of those results. Does this help?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. All right, so what we're going to be doing now is we are going to be heading to the computer lab.